changed. Young lady, I'm talking to you for a minute. Who are you becoming? Who are you watching? Who are you modeling? Who's destroying you now to make you not good later? Who's building you now to make you great tomorrow? Who's putting trash in your mind now so that you will be a sewage dump 10 years from now? Who's emptying trash out of you now so that you can be sanitized 10 years from now? Who are you becoming? We know that Esther ended up being but now we just learned that before she was Esther, she was Hadassah. So she went from Hadassah to Esther to queen. So just real quick, we've learned that she has gone from being a maiden to a beautiful woman to a queen. Now, somewhere in between this, you ought to fit in. Somewhere in between this, you ought to find yourself. Either you're down and out, you're getting up, or honey, you made it. And wherever you are, there's something that you ought to tell somebody. If you are Hadassah right now, God wants you to know today that you will be queen. You don't feel like it? You can't imagine it? You don't understand it. Everybody talks about Esther the queen, but the reason most women don't desire to be Esther, just call themselves Esther, is because they don't understand what Esther had to do to be queen. Because nobody wants to teach that, because it takes too long. And most people who come to church just want church to be fast, quick, and easy. We don't want to learn about it. Because where you are right now, you might be in the hardest struggle of your life, but the best position that you've ever been in. Brother Price, Sister Price, I got a call this week. She was painting. She said like she'd never painted before. She's pregnant. She's about to have a baby. And I said, well, that's great. She said, no, I'm just 6 months. Okay. Then those pains indicate that something's wrong, but the pains still indicate that the baby's moving. And sometimes before some things come forth, they kick. No. Sometimes before some things come forth, they hurt. And I'm telling you right now, sometimes your hurt is a great indication that you're still alive. I know you wish you were dead, but every time you hurt, there's something that says you survived another day. I'm not going to walk this unless I have to. I don't know where you are right now. But you won't be here too long. God is moving people. God is moving things. But before he moves anybody or anything else, he said, can I move you? You've got to tell him today, sometimes, Lord, you are worth waiting for. So she's Hadassah, and then she moves and she becomes Esther. And there's nothing written in the Bible that tells us when she became known as Esther. Hadassah just faded off. It just was forgotten about. It's just not thought of. It's just not mentioned. I know, lady, I know, sister, there's some junk in your life that only you remember. Shake your head twice and realize, why don't the people now know who I used to be. All the junk you go through now is because of who you are. It really is not because of what you've done. It's because of what you're going to be. See, God knows in a minute you're about to be queen. But you got to thank God that people you know now don't really know your other name, heifer. That's just one of them. No, they call you sister now, Mrs. now, doctor now, professor now, madam this and lady that. They don't know heifer, they don't know the cow, because the cow faded off. But you had to come through heifer to get to. You might have to explain that one to the children now. Heifer is a cow. Because I didn't want to use the girl dog, but that was the other one. So we don't know. There's no record. And if you just look it up and find it, just give it to me so I'll never preach that again. But I've studied because I wanted to be able to stand and tell you that one day she was going through the thing and something knocked her in the head and she woke up and something said, "Thou art Esther." But we don't have a record of that. Just like we don't have a record of when Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, their names were changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We just know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. We don't know who they were before they went into the fire. Most people don't know who you were before you got to where you are. There is no record of anything. When I went in the hospital the other day, they were trying to find a record to try to see if early in my life I had what we call Guillain-Barré syndrome, and my brother is here as a reference, and my family members know that I went through, but there is no record. They don't have any record of what happened when I went through that syndrome that I had that caused me paralysis and to be in a coma. There's no record of that. They said because that was so old, that's, that your records have not been, everything has changed since then. That was way back then. So most of the stuff that you talk about that God has brought you out of now, there ain't even no record of that stuff. If you don't tell your story, folk will think you just ended up being honorary. They don't know what you just came through. They don't. I'm trying my best just to talk to y'all this morning because I want to just talk to you. Most people don't know what you did, and they don't know why you did it. But it seems like ever since you've tried to do right, everybody's keeping record of your mistakes. And if you make mistakes, raise your hand like mine. If the person next to you has their hand down, that's a liar. Move your purse. Thank you. Put your hand back down. Everybody keeps a record of your mistakes. They keep a record of your faults. They keep a record and a reminder of the things you do wrong. You can do 12,000 things right. You do one thing wrong, that's it. They keep a record of what you said. They keep a record of what you did to them. They keep a record of things that they should have deleted that you said and wrote, But I'm here to tell you this morning that God is keeping a record of how many times you made a comeback. God is keeping a record of how many times you've forgiven somebody else. God is taking notes of how many times you were supposed to roll over, but you stood up. God's keeping a record of how many times you threw in the towel, but you picked that towel up and dried off with it. God is keeping a record of how many times the tears got halfway down and you dried them up and said, "I'm not going out like a punk." God is keeping a record of how many people owed you everything but gave you nothing and you gave something back to them. God is keeping a record of how many people counted you out but they got to 9 and you got back up. God is keeping a record of it. Who are you becoming? People don't know who you are. So they went and got Hanessa, Hannah, whatever they called her. We know her as Esther. So when she's brought to the king's court, she's known as Esther. And so now she's ready to be the queen, right? Because all he wanted was a beautiful virgin. She's a beautiful virgin. And see, what some of us do is we work on a couple of things and we think we're all right. And that's all right if you're talking about dealing with me. That's okay if you're talking about dealing with somebody else. But if you're talking about dealing with God, there's a whole lot of other areas that need to be worked out. So now they bring this beautiful girl. And why would they bring Esther in to go through a year of training? She's already beautiful. She's already gorgeous. She's a virgin. Because they were not looking for perfection. They were looking for potential. God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for potential. So if you hire right now, you got potential. Because he knows that you can drink and get full. He knows that you can be slain by another spirit. He knows you know how to come out and keep your high under control. He knows you're not perfect. So why is God dealing with you as long as he's dealing with you? Because you have potential. Why are you sitting in this church with all of us? You're sitting in here in a church room full of misfit toys. You walked in here and tried to find a few people that you could see that didn't belong in your class. Then when you looked over, you tried to figure out, look, they're not in my class, what am I doing in here with them? All of a sudden you realize, hot dog, I got a reserved seat in the church of misfit toys. You look up, you see somebody drunk over there, somebody mentally unbalanced over there, somebody poor over there, somebody kind of looking weird over here, somebody overweight there, somebody underweight there, somebody look like they're going through cancer here, somebody look like they belong in an insane asylum here, somebody just got out of prison over here, somebody's homosexual over there, somebody's seeking homosexuality over there, some woman with a mixed up. You look at them, oh my God, what is going on? He says, I'm loading it up with potential. Because if I can't change them, I'm not God. And if they didn't need to be changed, I wouldn't have brought them all in the same place to show them